Hey everybody, Stacks here. Today I'm checking out Excalibur number 7, written by Tini Howard. You got Wilton Santos on pencils and Eric Arcienega as your color artist. Now this book comes hot on the heels of Apocalypse managing to take over Avalon. He's placed Jamie Braddock on the throne and he's managed to capture Morgan Le Fay. In the process of all that happening, Brian Braddock was accidentally killed by Betsy Braddock, and luckily Jamie was there to bring him back, but he is completely messed up in the head now after being under Morgan Le Fay's control. And that gets us caught up to Excalibur number 7. So if you haven't yet, make sure you're subscribed, hit the bell for notifications, leave a comment and a like below. Make sure you go check out my X-Men Fantastic Four videos and register to win that complete series. And we'll get started on Excalibur number 7. The book starts with the Sword of Might buried into a stone, and you look up and you realize it's at the bottom of a hole, and Betsy's asking Richter to bury it, and Rogue's like, hold up a minute. Seems to me that if your brother says, hey look, I'm got a magic sword and I'm a bad guy now, you just tell him, no, you're a good guy, trust me, and you don't bury it. But Betsy's already figured that she's going to follow through with Brian's request on this, and she goes ahead and has Richter bury it, and then she heads off to Otherworld. When she arrives in Otherworld, she's met by her brother Jamie sitting on his throne, and they have a nice little back and forth squabble that really amounts to nothing, but Jamie is so kind that when Betsy says she's looking for Apocalypse, he shows her the way to him, right through the floor. Well, when she arrives here, she's surprised to see that Exodus is down here working with Apocalypse, and he is very quick to welcome her, to say thank you for everything you've done so far. Exodus actually says, look, you should be proud of what you guys have accomplished so far. But this is the part where Apocalypse really starts to try to bring Captain Britain in on everything that's going on. He explains that, look, we're countrymen now. We're both Krakoan, and this is about the expansion of Krakoa into Otherworld. Now she bites back and is like, look, if I determine your goals are harmful, make no mistake, I have a duty to stop you, because I'm Captain Britain and I'm a member of the X-Men. He's like, look, we're countrymen, and both leaders at that. Are we not Krakoan? Or is this place not Krakoa too? And then she tries to throw like, look, it's not about being Krakoan. You put Jamie on the throne of Camelot. And Apocalypse stops her right there. He's like, Jamie is your brother, Captain, and very powerful, both Braddock and mutant. And he starts in with, would you have preferred that I... And she cuts him off right there. And she's like, look, I have a duty to protect this place. And he's like, look, and I a desire too. We share that. And that's when Apocalypse opens his entire playbook to her. He says, look, but you're not without wisdom for not trusting me. I get it. But thankfully, we no longer need to keep any secrets. And it's at that point that he shows her his grimoire. And she asks, why are you showing me this? And he's like, to read, because I don't want you to question and fear me. I want our coven to be empowered with knowledge. Some of these are notes that I've kept hidden for centuries. Thank you, Exodus, for that, by the way. And this actually works. Captain Britain says, look, this actually puts my mind at ease quite a bit. And that's with the documents there in hand. He gives her next mission that he needs her to accomplish. And that's that he needs her to hunt werewolves. He needs 5 werewolf skulls in order to take the next step in this process. And Captain Britain's kind of confused by this, though. She says, you're joking, right? This is a joke. Don't they come from the Mojoverse? Aren't they in the zoo? And Apocalypse tells her, look, yes, they're in the London Zoo, and thankfully you are Captain Britain. I will be needing their heads. And Betsy's like, look, I don't know if I can slaughter zoo animals. And she's like, look, they're not native to your realm, Captain, nor are they good or kind. Additionally, I thought the boy might want to go to the zoo. And he looks out the door, and there's Shogo and Jubilee sitting there, her trying to get him to eat. Now, I can definitely relate to Shogo here. He does not want to go back to Krakoa, because there on Krakoa, he's just a human child. Here in Otherworld, he is a dragon. If you got to choose between being like a 18-month-old, I guess, and a dragon, you pick a dragon every time. Well, after coordinating a babysitter, Jubilee, Captain Britain, and Peter Wisdom head to the zoo, where we find out that the werewolves are no longer there. The zoo manager isn't forthcoming with the information about what exactly happened to them either, whether they were transferred or sold or whatever happened. Well, Peter Wisdom tries to get it out of her, but she's not going to let him have it. Well, Jubilee manages to hack into the system here, find whatever transfer documents there are, and pull them down. Once they've pulled down that information and checked it out, it makes it really easy for Pete Wisdom to take the next step because the guy they're pursuing is a known asset named Cullen Bloodstone. Now, if you're not familiar with Cullen Bloodstone, what you need to know is that in an attempt to win Father of the Year, his dad put him in this alternate dimension and meant to leave him there basically overnight and left him in there for like 2 years because his father died. And anyways, he, during that time, managed to get possessed by something, and that gives him these powers. However, he's unable to control it without the assistance of this Bloodstone ring. He can control whatever's possessed him enough to where he has powers from it, and the Bloodstone ring gives him, power, strength, all that stuff as well. But just to be clear, he's not a mutant. And this guy plays the role of perfect snob just to a T. He calls Captain Britain out saying, there's a lot of people saying, you're not the real deal. And, she assures him that, look, I am. He then asks, well, where do your loyalties truly lie? Let's just say, for instance, that Britain went to war with Krakoa. What side of the conflict would you sit on? And he manages to hit every single one of Betsy's buttons. But they finally get down to business, and it comes down to, look, I'm not going to give you the skulls of 5 beasts that you didn't hunt yourself. If you want these, you're going to have to come hunt them yourself. And there's no reason we can't all share in the fun. From there, we jump to the Bloodstone Summer Lodge, where Cullen has taken this as far as like an old-fashioned fox hunt, except for instead of the hounds, he has these crazy-looking hairless cats and an Excalibur team that half of them want to be here and half of them don't. Richter, he's like, I can't believe I'm actually doing this. Rogue, she's fired up about it. Just, she ain't big on hunting, she says, but just getting out and just having a good day outside, get your blood pumping. Well, and Gambit, he's like, yeah, you could have done that at home. And Captain Britain continues to have a problem with Gambit. And I would say he continues to have a problem with Captain Britain, because once he finds out that they're getting these heads specifically for Apocalypse and not the Quiet Council, which Gambit was led to believe that they were getting these skulls for the Quiet Council. But Richter says, well, it's actually one of the members of the council. He's ticked. He's like, look, y'all keep sending me on errands for him without telling me, and I'm going to make a real mess of it one of these days. I promise. And Rogue's kind of shocked. She's like, oh, come on, Suge. And Betsy comes up and puts her hand on his shoulder and says, look, I want this done as well. And he says, have you already forgotten that you weren't going to ask me for anything else? Anything. And that wasn't that long ago. Well, it's at that time that Gambit hears something and he takes off. He goes rushing after it, and he finds some woman sitting there on a rock, looks up and starts talking to her, sits down beside her, and then realizes real quick he has stepped right into a trap as this werewolf pulls off the skin and immediately begins to attack Gambit. Well, Betsy swoops in and decapitates the thing, takes the skull, and at least there's one down at this point. Now, I gotta say, if you're hunting something that can, wear the skin of other beings, you might want to tell that to the people who haven't hunted them before. It seems like it's worth mentioning. Anyways, the discussion continues as they walk along about Apocalypse and whether or not they should trust him. And Richter has become, a fan. He bailed Richter out when Richter was struggling with his depression and stuff. And then finally Gambit says, look, he's helped all of you, but he's a predator. You think predators get fat by telling the truth? It's at that point that Rogue swoops down and says, I just saw one of the werewolves go into a cave up there. So Richter kicks in and works on running him out of there. Well, Cullen Bloodstone takes a little offense to this, saying, look, that's not very sportsmanlike, using your mutant powers to flush these things out. And of course, he's taking this as a direct competition. Well, it's at that point that one of these werewolves sees Rogue, jumps up and attacks her. The thing manages to take Rogue to the ground, and Cullen rides up and actually sees what's going on. And he says himself that, look, sportsmanship would dictate I help you, but I think you mutants, you could use a loss. You could need to be reminded of just how human you could be. Well, Rogue ain't the person to pull that with, because she pulls off the gloves and absolutely just drains this werewolf. And Rogue's done talking to him. Colin says, look, you melted him. And she's like, no, I drained him. You got anything else to say, pretty boy? Or do I gotta give you the smack in the mouth your mama couldn't make time for? And he's like, whoa, perhaps I've lost my taste for hunting werewolves. He runs off and says, now I'm feeling the need for a different quarry. Well, in the meantime, Rogue not only takes the skull from the werewolf, but decides to make a pelt out of it and turn it to a cape. But Rogue barely has time to tell him that Cullen's mad about them using their mutant powers before suddenly Jubilee gets scooped up and pulled off to the side, and Cullen says, you know what? I'm changing the rules. You guys can hunt the werewolves. I've suddenly got the taste for hunting mutants. Overall, I thought this book was fine. I didn't really think there were any huge issues with it. It's a setup issue. There's actually a good bit of action in it, and I really can't complain. The dialogue was actually good in this one compared to some of the other ones we've experienced. And I like the inclusion of Exodus in this, him and Apocalypse working together. I like Apocalypse trying to bring Captain Britain into the fold and saying, look, I need you to trust me. I know I've been secretive. You're very being pragmatic in the fact that you are not trusting me at this point, but let me show you what I'm working on. I do hope we get more out of Exodus, because at this point, him just being a background character seems like a waste. I hope we're going to get something more from him, because he's an absolute beast. As far as the art, I thought 98% of the art was good. There was one or maybe a couple of shots of Apocalypse that made me laugh, and this one here with him looking over his shoulder, just, I don't know, it cracked me up. I don't know why. Now, somebody in the comments, Freddie Beat, he asked me, hey, how familiar am I with Excalibur? And Excalibur is a book that in the past I read maybe a handful of back issues, probably non-consecutive, kind of just whatever I could get my hands on back when I was a kid kind of thing. And maybe a couple here and there, just picking them up at random out of, 50-cent bins. But it is good to see, and he mentioned this, being a longtime Excalibur fan, how good it is to see some of the throwbacks to the old Excalibur, like the Warwolves, the Starlight Citadel, Otherworld, Jamie Braddock, all these things coming together and kind of reaching back towards the continuity that exists within Excalibur. And for what they're doing with Jonathan Hickman and Tini Howard on this, I can definitely respect paying homage to the stuff and building on that continuity. Anyways, guys, I would say that this book is a recommend. Make sure you pick it up. You'll probably still be able to find it in back issue bins. And make sure you hit the subscribe button. Go check out my X-Men Fantastic Four videos. You can register to win that complete series as soon as they release issue number 4. All you have to do to be registered to win is head over to those X-Men Fantastic Four videos, subscribe, like, and of course leave a comment down in the video, and you'll be registered to win that whole series, guys. Anyways, that's all I got. Y'all take care. Real Comic Stacks out.